You're listening to Thunderquack Podcast Network. This is the Thunderquack Podcast, the official podcast of Thunderquack Podcast Network, where anything can happen. So strap yourselves in and hold on to your butts. It's Thunderquack time!
Hello and welcome back to the Thunderquack Podcast, the official podcast of thunderquack.com, which you can get early every Tuesday over at patreon.com/thunderquack, just like our Patreon producers, Brian Morowski and JJ Samuel do, or you can wait and get it late every Friday on podcast services across the galaxy. I am one of your hosts, Michael Cohen.
And I'm your other host, Amanda Kunkin.
And I haven't introed a podcast in like 2 weeks.
Ooh.
And that was pretty perfect.
First try. Good job. That's a little it was tough. I did not intro it first time last time.
No, did you have to do it multiple times?
I did. I had to do it twice.
Well, the listeners would not have known it because obviously I didn't include those when I edited the episode. But thank you for you and Ryan picking up the slack for me last week.
It was fun. Ryan feels really bad. I always freak out about how the recording's going, and I thought my internet was funky, but there was something on the mic end, and so I think that the recording isn't as clean as it could be. So
yeah, he had a lot of clicks and stuff on his end. This stuff happens, but I did my best to clean it up, and I think I made it listenable.
Appreciate it. Thank you. But we'll get better. You'll eventually be able to leave me with the podcast and know that I won't. I will say, me and Ryan, it's now our second time. We have to do it at least one more time together, because I think the first time we ever podcasted together, it didn't pick up his side of the audio like at all for the first 20 minutes of us recording. Mm-hmm. Anyways, a little glimpse behind the curtain here at Thunderquack.
Well, regardless, thank you for filling in for me. Or however that works. I don't know.
I think it was I liked it that I was filling in for you and then Ryan was filling in for me. That's how that works, right?
Yeah. And you guys are probably wondering, why are we getting episodes 2 weeks in a row? Are you guys going back to doing episodes every week? No, we're not.
No, you're not.
Stuff in my life is a little bit crazy at the moment. A little bit topsy-turvy. So we're switching around this weekend next week. So next week, you guys are going to get metaphysical fiction with Carl and I. We're going to talk about Independence Day, which we were originally slated to do this week, which would have made more sense because we're a little bit closer to July 4th. But we're still in the month of July, so it's all right.
It all counts. It counts.
And that means that you guys are getting 2 weeks in a row of Thunderquack, and then you'll get metaphysical fiction, and then the next week after that will be the exclusive off the record for July. Or will that one be in August? I don't know. I'd have to look at the map.
It'll be July, because then we're back. Because then we're back August 2nd, which is August long weekend.
That makes sense. Yeah. So that's why. And also I thought like this works well because I wasn't on last week. It's been a while since you and I have chatted.
Yeah, exactly.
And we have a lot to talk about, but we're not allowed to talk about it on this show.
Yeah, that's fair.
We've both seen Black Widow.
Whoop whoop.
I think we might have different opinions on it.
Oh, okay.
We're gonna save that for enough said for when we record that later this week with Curtis. I have a lot to say about Black Widow, both good and bad. My review is mixed, I'll say.
Nice. Sorry. I went with my whole family, which was kind of nice. Like, because I'm in the Okanagan, so I'm visiting them, and I haven't. My whole family. Sorry. Oh, bless you, Michael. I just realized how weird it is to call you Michael. I never call you Michael. Anyways, I went with my whole family, which was super weird because, it's not only like just coming out of the pandemic, but also just because I never see them, which is good. But my sister, she was like, which ones do I have to see? And I was like, you don't have to see any of them really to watch it. Like it comes after, it's like it's like a prequel. It's like in the middle of the other stuff. Cause I know that she'd seen like the original Avengers. But it turns out like she hadn't seen like anything. And so I thought that she knew what happens in Endgame and she didn't. So the post-credit scene was spoilerific for her. So it was fun.
I am of the opinion that with something that is in the cultural zeitgeist like Endgame was, that if 2 years after it has come out, and what actually are we 2
Almost
years
3.
or 3 years?
No,
2019, right?
Yeah.
It's just over 2 years. So 2 years after it came out, if you haven't seen it, if you don't know what happens in it, that's on you. That's not spoilers.
It's
you,
fair. I just
like,
feel like I didn't shield her from that because I knew that the movie proper probably wouldn't have spoilers in it, but I should have known that the post-credit scene would have.
But like, here's the thing on this. Doesn't matter for her, right? Does it matter?
I guess it doesn't because she doesn't really. But anyways, I'm excited because she's now wanting to watch and go through all of them. So before I leave the Okanagan next weekend, I'm gonna go and make her watch Captain Marvel because she hasn't watched Captain Marvel. At least she thinks she hasn't. I can't believe it. She doesn't remember if she's seen them. Like I was like,
bingo.
It's so upsetting that she doesn't like remember. She like was watching Civil War. She's like, oh, I've already seen this one, and I was like, what the heck, Sarah? You're ridiculous.
Exactly. So
anyways,
as we've talked about many times before, and I have said on Twitter an awful lot, some people go to a movie and they experience that movie for those 2 hours, 2.5 hours, however long it is, 90 minutes maybe, and then they leave the movie theater and then it has no impact on their life.
I just don't get that.
Like, absolutely not. Like, they just like, it was a thing that they did, no different than like let's use mini golf as an example. If you go and play mini golf, it's not like you leave the mini golf course and like for the rest of your life you're like, wow, that mini golf course, right? It's a thing that you did, and if somebody says, have you played mini golf at that mini golf course, you go, yeah.
Yep, I have.
And it's like, do you remember it? I think there was a windmill.
Right.
Yeah, I remember it, right?
Yeah.
That's how some, maybe even most people interact with film. We are not those people, obviously. And every movie that I see, good, bad, or ugly, has a lasting effect on me for the rest of my life. Right? Because it's like, if it's a good movie, then I carry that with me in a positive way. If it's a bad movie like The Rise of Skywalker, then I carry that with me in a very negative way. And if it's an ugly movie, then there's a movie that I watched in film school called Leolo. I may have brought it up in the past, but it's what I would consider an ugly movie. I think it's Italian. I'm pretty sure it's Italian. It's one of those movies that's like, it's absurd and European and like uncomfortable for the sake of being uncomfortable.
Oh yeah.
And certainly, I mean, if I watched it today, I'd probably have a much different experience of it than I did when I was 18. Hey,
Fair.
Heads up. If there are any 18-year-olds listening to this podcast and you're considering going into film school, the best advice that I can give you, wait at least 2 years. At least 2 years, if not like closer to 7. So you do not have the life experience yet to get what you need to get from that experience, unless the only thing that you're interested in is operating a camera or editing or something like that. But like, if you actually want to care about film at 18 years old, you're not ready. Certainly at 17 years old, you're not ready. Like right out of school, right out of high school, you're not ready for it yet because your brain is just not finished cooking.
Well, you're not ready for like many things straight out of high school. Exactly. I feel like there's a fault in the education.
And here's the trick. Here's the thing that they don't tell you when you read the pamphlets or you go to an info session at, like, let's say an art institute, for example. Let's just to pick one randomly. Not that I have a personal vendetta against them. but even like higher education institutions like universities and stuff like that, it does not matter how good your student film was, if it won awards, any of that stuff. When you're done school, when you're done your 2-year program that you're going to pay $60,000 for, at least, it's probably more now. It's probably more like 80 or 90 now. You are still starting at the bottom.
Yep.
No different than if you just started working today. So that's my advice. If you really, really, really want to be in film, really, really, really want to be in film, you do one of two things. You start making stuff on your own, or you just go and you get an entry level position as a PA, or on the acting side as an extra, or in like doing theater or something like that. Like you just start at the bottom, because that fancy technical school education that you're going to pay a lot of money for is not going to do anything. It's not even going to get your foot in the door anywhere. It's
It
not.
will teach you some stuff about how to make film.
You're going to learn some technical
but then you
stuff
still
for
have
sure.
to do that too.
You're going to learn some technical stuff for sure, but guess what? You're going to learn that on the job. In a lot of instances, when you start at the bottom, like you're still going to learn that stuff. Now, if you want to go into animation, if you want to be a developer, if you want to go into video game design, those are different. That's different, right? But if you want to like go into film and television, just go get a job as a PA and start learning the craft and work your way up. You're gonna make more headway faster doing that. And like I said, you're gonna get out of, and this is not me just talking out of my butt. Everybody that I went to film school with that is in the industry, they left, whether they were 25 or 35, they left and got entry level positions, basically. Of like nobody like left and got to go direct something. Nobody left and is writing movies. Nobody left and is like the like number one camera op, right? Like people left and got like internships with a studio that does for hire editing, right? Or like unpaid internships probably, like, and work their way up, and now they have a good career 15 years later, right? Or they started as like basically like a grip or a gaffer, and have worked their way up and are doing stuff now, like
I will
like
say
as
it does give
like
you
junior stuff. So
but you can still get the tools to make a film for free. So that is fun, and then you go through the procedure of actually submitting to film festivals.
it's not free though, and that's the Kevin
you're
Smith
paying
thing, right?
Oh
You are
yeah,
paying
then
a
put that
lot of
money
money
into
for it. Just take that
put that money
$60,000
into
to go
film.
make something. You know, I
Actually,
mean, that's
here.
not feasible for everybody. But here's the thing. Here's the other part of that. Now, you don't need that much money to make a short film now.
Yeah, correct.
Right? $5,000, which most people can scrounge up $5,000, whether it's through a credit card or whatever. You can go make your short movie. You can go make your 40-minute short film. You can do
We are not advocating for you to make short films using your credit card. Just let it be said. However, you can do
You're
that.
not.
Yes,
you aren't.
you are. Okay,
I absolutely am, because here's the thing. If you are actually going to do it, if you're actually going to be the thing,
that's fair.
Then you're going to do it.
That's fair. Go do it.
So I have no problem saying like, go do that. Go do that thing. Because if you're not going to do it, you're going to get 3 steps in and you're going to realize how hard it actually is, and you're going to give up.
Yeah, that's
right?
Fair.
And that's how the industry works. And the people who are in it are the people who want to be there and who it's their passion. There's a reason why I'm not there. I love movies. I love watching and talking about movies. And I'm very thankful that I have my education, because I'm able to talk about them at the level that I am. And I can actually back that up with like, well, I know what it takes to make a movie. That's exactly why I don't do it. Right?
Yeah.
So it's like, so whenever you and I are talking about stuff and you're talking about this, that, it's like, I understand everything that you're talking about. And like I have the experience to know enough, and certainly to know enough that I don't want to do that. Yeah, graphic design is a lot easier. It's and I make probably about the same amount of money that I would make if I were, still working in film, like if I had pursued that instead.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's to me, like, that's the thing, is that the people who want to do it, here's a funny story. So Crystal's grandma, who is in a like semi-assisted care, like nursing home type thing, not like a full-on like nursing home, but like I don't know, I don't like, it's like semi-assisted living sort of
I
thing.
get what you mean. Yeah, yeah.
She met a guy in there. She hadn't had a boyfriend for decades. She met a guy
That's
a
super
couple of years
cute.
ago in there,
Adorable.
Barry. He works on Superman and Lois.
Oh.
Um, and he's been working in the industry for decades. He's in his 70s, and he's like, he works like lighting. Like
Yeah.
he's not like high up. He's certainly not above the line, right? Even though he's been doing it for decades. But like, and like, he's in his 70s and he's still going to like 4 a.m. call times,
Wow.
because he loves it.
Yeah.
Like, and
For sure.
if you love it, then you're gonna do it. Then, like, that's my honest opinion on it. It's like, so to me, you can go to school and you can get an education in something, and that's easy. You don't have to love it to do that. All you got to do is show up, right?
That's
And
fair.
this is my personal experience of it. It's like, all I had to do was show up. And it's not like, post-secondary is not like high school, where like high school people care about what grade you get. It's really, at the end of the day, it's a pass fail situation. Like, you either get your certificate at the end or you didn't, right?
Yeah.
Or you didn't complete the program. And I completed the program. I have the 2 pieces of paper on my wall that I can stare at if I feel like it right now. They're not very impressive. I they And then Crystal's, it's actually, it's very disheartening for me on a regular basis whenever I look at it, because I have my 2 crappy pieces of paper that are really just proof that I signed checks and gave them my student loan. And then Crystal has her 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 bachelor from University of Victoria and her master's from the University of British Columbia, and then her BACB certification to do her job. And it's like, these are 3 very fancy frames with seals and stuff like that on them. Mine look like they were printed at a Kinko's with a crappy sticker on them. But
But you did it.
yeah, like, it's easy to just go to school and learn a thing. It's much more difficult to show up to the job and do the job every day. And I think, I personally think it's much more valuable to get out there and try and do the thing, whether it's getting a job as a PA or whatever, like entry level type thing, like I said. And you'll find out real quick, is this for me? Especially when it comes to film and television, you'll know within the first couple of weeks if this is something, if this is a lifestyle that you want to live. And if it is, then go for it, and look, like, push all your chips into the middle of the table, because it's the only way that you're gonna achieve anything, I think, on that. It's like, people who are half-hearted on it, I don't think really get anywhere. It's the people who take the big risks that get their big rewards. But yeah, like, it's, going to film school is an easy way to like make it look like you're doing the thing without actually ever doing the thing, because it's a safety net, right? Like, you're always in like this like an academic environment. Even in a tech school like the Art Institute, you're still in an academic environment where there's a lot of people making sure that you're doing the things that you should be doing, or like giving you advice and stuff like that. I So it's really easy to quote unquote succeed. But in the real world, nobody cares, right? Like, you might be lucky enough to get a mentor, and that mentor might look out for you and give you a heads up of like, hey, don't do this, hey, do this, hey, you need to work on this skill or something like that. But for the most part, like, it's a sink or swim situation, right?
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, it's like, I'm very much of the opinion with film and TV specifically, like just go do it. And either you're going to or you're not, but it's better to, it's like ripping off a band-aid, like it's like just get it over with. Or I don't know, like it's better to know sooner rather than spending 2 years and 60 grand to find out that you really should have just done the graphic design program for 40 and been done in a year and actually have a degree that counts towards the job that you're going to do. Because man, the number of times that I've had to explain it, like tell the story of like I did everybody's movie posters and their websites and their DVD covers and menus and stuff like that, and people were paying me in my second year at film school to do that stuff for them because they didn't want to do it, but I love doing it. And I was like, wait a second, I don't want to do the other thing, I want to do this thing. And then had to spend 3 years teaching myself everything because I couldn't afford another 60 grand. I couldn't afford the first 60 grand. That's the truth. I'd still have student loans if I didn't marry Crystal. Like in two ways. For a very long time, she made a lot more money than I do. And then for a little while there, we were kind of evened out. And now, once again, she makes a hell of a lot more money than I do. I got no problem with it. I love it actually. So she was able to help me with our finances and stuff like that, get that stuff sorted out. And then B, she also like was on my case of like, you can't just ignore this, which I did for like the first 2 years. I never paid my student loans for the first year.
Oh,
she was like, no, you have to pay this. They won't give you also you have to do your taxes. It's like, oh, do I?
These are life things. Yeah.
Do I though? And it's like, yeah, you absolutely do. Because sooner or later, this is going to catch up to you. And yeah. So I'm very grateful to her for those things. But yeah.
There you go.
Anyways, Marvel movies.
That's what that was.
That's where that started. Right?
That's where that started. Yeah. Was that we do have finally stuff to talk about, but we'll talk about it when we actually talk about.
Yeah. That. So we'll talk about. You guys will get the Black Widow enough said later this week, and then Loki. Even though it finishes this week, I don't want to do 2 in a row, and next week is going to be a little bit crazy for me, anyways. So we're gonna wait 2 weeks and do Loki, which will give everybody time because I'm sure that there are people within the sound of my voice that are waiting for Loki to finish, and then they're gonna start because some people don't like waiting week to week. So we'll give that extra buffer of 2 weeks for everybody to start and finish Loki. Also, not only for me to finish it this week, because I'll finish it tomorrow night at midnight, because I cannot wait. Spoiler alert, Loki is phenomenal. Like, Loki is one of the best things that they've done in the MCU. And we said that about WandaVision, and it was true then. It's still true now. Loki is, in my opinion, just as good. And if they can stick the landing in this final episode, it might actually exceed it for me personally.
Nice. Well, there you go.
So yeah, like definitely if you haven't started Loki, or if you like Falcon and the Winter Soldier, I was kind of meh on. Like, it's fine, but and it has some real standout moments, but it's also got it has high highs, but it also has low lows for me. Whereas Loki has been consistently just like very specifically my cup of tea with the weird sci-fi. It's a lot of people have said it's the best season of Doctor Who in decades. And I think that's like when I hear people say that, I go, oh, I understand why some people do really like Doctor Who. Which, I mean, like, I like the first season of the rebooted stuff. What's that? He's the 9th Doctor, right? Eccleston
is the 9th Doctor, yes.
Yeah, I really like that season. I really like the first season with 10. But I fell off after that, and I won't watch Matt Smith. I really won't watch any of the subsequent stuff. I hear too many mixed things, but
I love Matt Smith seasons.
I know you do. Not for me. Yeah, but Loki is so up my alley. It's such perfect sci-fi fantasy. It's so good. They're just nailing it. It's perfect comic book storytelling. So we'll talk more about that stuff over the next couple of weeks. And man, what else is coming up? There are so many things. Amanda still hasn't seen Fast 9. I'll give you my real quick review of that, and then I think we're gonna talk about Luca. Is that our plan?
I think so. Yeah.
Fast 9 is a Fast and Furious movie. And if you love them, you love them. If you don't like them, don't watch it. I don't know what to tell you. It's like if somebody were like, man, I hate tacos. They're messy. I don't like spicy food. There's vegetables on them. No thanks. And then they were like, I'm going to Taco Bell for dinner. And you'd be like, why are you doing that? Why would you do that to yourself? And Fast and the Furious is very much that as a franchise, as a film franchise. Like if you don't like tacos, if you don't like a messy, ridiculous, spicy good time, then don't buy the ticket. Like I can't make it more clear than that. But if you want to get sloppy and turn your brain off in some instances as much as you literally can. Yeah, I mean, some of this stuff was in the trailer. I'll give one of the things away. It's not a spoiler because it was in the trailer. They rope swing with a car.
Oh yeah.
And you see it in the trailer and you're like, oh, I can't wait to see like what that was about in the movie. And then there is no further explanation. They don't as a matter of fact, they acknowledge how ridiculous it was.
Amazing.
It's completely absurd. The whole movie is completely absurd. But there are magnets. And John Cena is in it. Okay. And I don't know. As a kid whose favorite Lego pieces were the magnets, when they introduced magnetic pieces to Lego, it was like, oh my god, the things I can build with these magnets. And I did. And it was all sorts of stuff like cars and airplanes where like the airplane could fly over the car and pick up the car because it has magnets on it. And then that's what this movie is. So it is literally just silly people playing with their Hot Wheels cars for 2 hours. And
that's what you ask for.
That's what that's what you sign up for.
Movie, right?
It's exactly what it says on the box. Like
there you go.
Yeah. To me, I really liked Hobbs and Shaw. Like that. Like I think of probably all of the Fast franchise movies. Like Hobbs and Shaw is probably my favorite because you've got The Rock and Jason Statham, and there's like an actual dynamic going on there, and Vin Diesel's not in it. And like as much as I enjoy the cheese factor of Vin Diesel, Fast 9 is definitely a great example of like, oh, this is really his movie and everybody else is just kind of in it. Hey, like like it's him fair. And whoever the bad guy is this time. And that's really all it's about. And everybody else is just there as like window dressing for
spectators
for quippy one-liners and stuff like that. I wasn't super thrilled with the way that they handled Han's story. Like they kind of hand wave a bunch of it away.
Oh, really?
But at the same time, I'm very happy to have him back. I think the thing that frustrates me, this is not spoilers because I'm saying what doesn't happen. I thought after Hobbs and Shaw, because of how Shaw is connected to Han's story, they would, because there's something going on in Hobbs and Shaw with the computer voice character, who like the big bad guy, like the Emperor Palpatine type character in that story, where it's like Idris Elba was the bad guy that they had to fight in that movie, but once they defeated him, it's like, well, you guys haven't solved the problem. Bad. You just defeated one of his generals. Like you beat Darth Vader, but the Emperor's still out there, right? And I really thought that the stuff that they set up with Idris Elba of like, dude was shot in the face and came back to life. These are spoilers for Hobbs and Shaw, I guess. That's another movie that's 2 years old. If you haven't seen it, it's on you. I like he was shot and like he was dead, right? Jason Statham killed him, and they used all of this tech to like bring him back, and he's basically like a biotechnological cyborg Superman, right? He calls himself Black Superman. And I really thought like, oh, rad, this is how they can bring back Han. Like that Han could come back and he can be a bad guy in the next Hobbs and Shaw.
Right.
I thought, like, to me, like in my head, like I remember leaving the theater, I saw Hobbs and Shaw with my brother, and I remember leaving and going like, man, it would be so rad if they did. Well, and he was just like, yeah, whatever, because he's like your sister, so he's like, oh, whatever, I don't care. I was like, no, but it would be so perfect. Like I can write the second Hobbs and Shaw, and we can bring back Han, and he can have superpowers, which makes him even cooler. And by the end of it, he turns back into a good guy, and now it's Hobbs and Shaw and Han. And then Han can come back to the Fast and Furious movies as well, and everybody can be happy. But then instead, they just they went a different route in Fast 9. And it was not as complex or nuanced or established in the lore as what I would have done. So, yeah. That's kind of my own, but honestly, that's my only disappointment with the movie. Other than that, it was like, yeah, this is what I wanted. That was my first experience back in the theater.
Wow, really?
Yeah, nice. All by myself, all by my lonesome. Right. Didn't have anybody to go with because you were in the Okanagan.
I was. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You
really let me down on that one.
I know. Actually, I could talk about Cruella because that was my first experience back in the theater. I mean, I don't know how much there is to really talk about Cruella. It's all of it is stuff that takes place beforehand. I will say it was nice I forget how talented Emma Thompson is. I mean, I never do. And every time I watch an Emma Thompson movie, I'm like,
Not Emma Thompson. Emma.
No, Emma Thompson.
No.
And Emma Stone are both.
Oh, Emma Thompson is in it as well. Okay. Yes. I was like, Emma Stone.
No. Emma. So I mean, because Emma Stone's great. She's fabulous. But I forgot because in all the trailers it's about Emma Stone. But I forgot that Emma Thompson is like really she's the villain in the movie about the villain, right? And so it was a cute movie that it really did show you the origin of a villain. Like I always am really I didn't really love Maleficent, like the stuff that they did with that, because she's such a cackle villain. She's so like she's a witch and there's like a lore to it. And anyways, but with Cruella, because she's a human, I just think it's kind of interesting to see the backstory for that. And I was like, how are they going to make her sympathetic? And they do, but also she still gets to be not super sympathetic, which is nice. Anyways, it's just I don't know. I think it's worth watching, definitely. And it was fun to watch it on the big screen. It was just nice to see it with my mom, because I know that she liked it. So
I'll wait for free Disney Plus.
There you go.
On that one, which is like in all of the conversations we've had about Premier Access and stuff like that, people are like, I don't understand it when people are all mad and they're like, I'm not paying $30 for this. It's like, okay,
you don't have to.
That's a perfectly valid choice. Yeah. Like, okay, clearly this movie isn't important enough to you. You don't. It doesn't. The trailers have not convinced you that this is a movie you would like to see for $30. That's fine. So don't do it. Right? It's like Raya and the Last Dragon, a sight unseen. Like, yeah, I'm gonna pay $30 to watch that with the family, right? Yeah. Obviously Mulan, we did that, right? Like,
do you only do Premier Access then, like when you actually want it and you stop it, like you pay it for the month and then you unpay it?
No, yeah, Premier Access is for that specific movie.
Oh, yeah, I didn't know that. I thought that it was like a thing that you could pay to have Premier Access.
No, it's a one-time fee for whatever that movie is,
and then you get it for eternity. Or as long
well, I mean, like the fine print on that is eventually it will be free on Disney Plus for everybody. So like Raya, now anybody can watch Raya,
right?
you don't have to buy it in Premier Access. So like with Cruella, yeah, like in 2 months it'll probably be free. Like by September it'll be free for everybody.
Right.
So yeah, like whatever. And that's my whole thing, is that it's like, yeah, if you want to pay the $30 to have access to it early, then do it.
And
It's
do
like
that.
Black Widow. I'm kind of on the fence after having seen it in the theater. I really thought being able to own a Marvel movie at home the instant after I've seen it in the theater is like, that's the dream,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Like being
Yeah.
able to watch Endgame again the next day from the comfort of my own home. That's the dream, right?
Right. Yeah.
Black Widow is not my cup of tea. To continue using that analogy, like it's definitely, I understand why other people love it as much as they do. And I think it's a good movie. I don't think it's a bad movie by any stretch of the imagination. But for me personally, it's like kind of found it a little bit too heavy on the explosion kick punch
Man,
factor,
that was the part I
and not
loved.
enough on the I wanted more of the family dynamic stuff. But
That's fair.
so not to go down the whole Black Widow route, I don't know. I'm kind of hemming and hawing of like,
You
should
get
I?
it
Because
immediately. Right.
part of me is like, well, maybe if I buy it and watch it again, I'll like enjoy those things. Now that I know what it is, I'll enjoy the stuff that I like a little bit more, and I can kind of tune out and check my phone for the other stuff, which I can't do in the movie theater.
Right.
But on the other hand, I'm like, why would I sit through a movie that I only want to watch 2/3 of?
Well, there you go.
Right.
That's fair.
So,
That's fair.
yeah, it's one of the aspect of that being like when it will be free eventually on Disney
Right.
Plus.
Yeah.
It's also the one that might break my collection of like, I have Blu-rays for all of them, for all of the MCU films, right?
Oh, so
And
yeah.
ending with Far From Home that might be the end of it for me, of like, okay, I don't need to own the physical media anymore. I don't know. I'm hemming and hawing. Like it's
Yeah.
none of this is important in any way. But let's talk about a movie that I think that we both liked a
Enjoy.
lot.
Yeah.
And that's Luca, the new Pixar movie. You guys have heard me talk about Pixar movies before. I don't generally like Pixar, specifically not the last like decade of Pixar. Like I personally think that maybe like Toy Story 2, Monsters Inc. might be the last really great one.
Right.
I'm gonna bring up the Pixar filmography, because it's
So
gonna
you can
come
see
up
like
in
all
this
the last
conversation
ones.
quite a bit. So list of Pixar movies. Let's just go down it real quick. Obviously starting with Toy Story in 1995, then A Bug's Life, Toy Story 2, Monsters Inc., Finding Nemo, The Incredibles, Cars, Ratatouille, Wall-E, Up, Toy Story 3, Cars 2, Brave, Monsters University, Inside Out, The Good Dinosaur, Finding Dory, Cars 3, Coco, Incredibles 2, Toy Story 4, Onward, Soul, and then Luca, most recently, June 18th, 2021. Coming out next is Turning Red, which is March 11th, 2022, and then Lightyear, which is June 17th, 2022. I am very much looking forward to Lightyear. Chris Evans as Buzz Lightyear.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, it's not the toy, it is the actual Buzz Lightyear, which is the movie that I've been asking for since the intro, like since the
Oh,
opening
since
of
the
Toy
intro of the
Story 2.
toy. Right, you're like, what does he actually come from, right?
What is the thing that
This
that the toy is based
toys
on?
from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um
Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, how
yeah.
fun.
Yeah, it's the real story of Buzz Lightyear. So,
Nice.
and I mean, we got Buzz Lightyear of Star Command, which was a great animated series, but I very underrated animated series, I would say, actually. It's one of the better Disney ones. But yeah, I mean, like look, you have this first initial run of Toy Story, Bugs Life, Toy Story 2, Monsters Inc., and I'll even give you Finding Nemo and The Incredibles. I have issues with both of those movies. But I, again, similar to Black Widow, I understand why other people love them, and I don't think that they're bad movies. I personally have issues with them. When people will often throw out that when you're like, oh, best superhero movie ever, and then some smarmy D-bag from the corner will be like, you guys are forgetting The Incredibles? And I'll be like, no, I'm not. Not a superhero movie.
Ah.
Very little superheroing that goes on in it. It's not a superhero movie, I don't think. It's a movie that has characters who happen to be superheroes, kind of, but it's really just a
They are
kids
actually
family movie.
superheroes.
Yes, they are, in a very like in like the most rudimentary way. The Incredibles is, I don't think, is as good as a lot of people remember it being, and there's a lot of nostalgia, rose-colored glasses there. I'll tell you
Because what
this.
it did for hair, man.
Yeah,
People don't understand the like dev that went into Violet's hair, and that it's still used as like like it was just like everybody looks to that being like
yeah.
what they did that many years ago is still hard to replicate. So
I will never take away the technical accomplishments of Pixar.
that's
It
fair.
being originally a George Lucas company, it like that's why it exists, is to innovate. So
I
like
thought
I
it was
totally
Steve
get that.
Jobs.
No, Pixar was a Lucasfilm thing to begin with, and then he sold it to Apple, and then Apple sold it to Disney. Um,
Okay, well,
yeah,
I feel like I remember it being a Steve Jobs, so it is, but it's
yeah. No,
I didn't know who got it.
Pixar comes out of ILM, um, as like, yeah, like that's
Cool.
it's rooted in ILM, which is Lucasfilm, which is George Lucas, right? So it,
Yeah.
yeah, it comes from that history. He's George Lucas is the reason Pixar exists. Steve Jobs, like turned it into a viable business sort of thing. Anyways, I yeah, but then we get to Cars, and in my opinion, Cars is fine. Cars is like a mediocre Disney movie, in my opinion.
Fair.
Um, but then you get Ratatouille, which I don't think
I
Ratatouille is a good movie.
love Ratatouille. Ratatouille is one of my faves, man.
Oh man, I think Ratatouille is a
I think
complete
it's
mess.
so much
I
fun.
think it's a complete narrative mess.
Okay, okay. Well, to each their
Wally
own.
is a short film that goes on for 2 hours.
I mean, you're not wrong. That's
Yeah, Wally is a great concept, and it does not hold up as a feature film. Up is where the Pixar formula comes in. They take that thing that they did in Finding Nemo, they rehash it, and they crank it up to 11. And they, like the first 15 minutes of Up are the most depressed anybody can possibly get watching a movie. And then Toy Story 3 continues that. Cars 2 goes down a similar route. Brave is just an awful film. Brave is just
Aw.
bad. There's a reason why Brave is a bad movie, and like that's a whole other thing. It's like the production, like a lot of these movies go through
Oh,
production hell, but
right. I remember Brave. Yeah, because they
Brave
took
went
it
through the
away from.
ringer. So
Yeah,
I
they
don't I don't blame
took it
any
away from the
one
creator.
person.
Yeah,
That's the
yeah.
industry, and every studio, no matter how good they are, has a Brave. And Brave has some really great stuff in it. But in terms of like being a good movie, it's there are 3 different movies in Brave, and each one of them is mediocre at best in the way that they're presented, but when you bring them all together, it's just a jumbled mess of nonsense. So there's no narrative through line in that movie. There's no clear like theme, or like, if you could change your fate, would you? I don't, does it have anything to do with the actual story? Her mom turns into a bear, and then she has to learn to get along with her mom. I don't know what that has to do with changing your fate, Anyways,
I maybe I should rewatch this movie because maybe
it's a
I'm
mess.
remembering. Maybe remembering it
It's a
through
mess. And then
rose-colored
her little
glasses.
brothers turn into bears as well because it's funny. That's the only reason.
Yep,
Doesn't
basically.
really, it just it ups the stakes of now her mom and her brothers are all going to be stuck as bears. But the stakes didn't need to be upped, and they really just did it for the yuck yucks of the 3 brothers being silly. Monsters University is such a mediocre sequel to a good movie. Inside Out is really good.
Yeah.
The Good Dinosaur should not have the word good in it. There's some cool stuff in there, but yeah, overall, Finding Dory. Did we really need to go back to that? Like,
No.
were there really
I
like
didn't watch Finding
unanswered
Dory,
questions
actually.
in
I, like,
Finding Nemo?
actually weirdly did not rewatch that, and I thought that I was the target demo for, I think, at least for,
Yeah.
the other one. Like, and I'm just,
Yeah,
yeah,
I would agree.
I didn't watch it.
Cars 3 might actually be the best Cars movie,
Oh, I don't know if
but
I have
it's
watched that one.
but it's still not great. It's a really good directed DVD Disney movie. Which all three of the Cars movies are. I Coco is also really good.
Yeah, I like Coco.
But it suffers from and Inside Out, it's the same thing. Like, they both suffer from the Pixar formula of like, we are just going to gut punch you into submission. Like, we're going to make you care about characters, and then we're just going to hurt those characters and see what happens to you as an audience. And they're just cheap shots, in my opinion. It's not like with Coco in particular, there are some parts that don't really feel very organic. It feels like we have a concept and we're gonna get you there, and in order for it to matter, we're gonna really like turn the screws on some of this stuff. And some of it works by the end of the movie, but it's one of those things, because there's a twist in it. It's like, I think you spend most of the movie going like, I don't really understand where this is going.
Wait, which movie has a twist in it?
Coco.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
I was like,
And
oh,
then
yeah,
and
totally.
then you get there and you're like, okay, all right, yes,
Gotcha,
now
yeah.
all of this is relevant, when I think a better way to approach that story would have been for the audience to be in on it the whole time, and for us to be pulling for Coco of like, don't you understand? Like, never for the movie not to explicitly say it, but for there to have been enough clues for us to know from like the moment we meet that character of like, you're the real dude.
Yeah.
Like this is obvious now. It's like, we
Yeah.
were with him up until this moment, and now we know the truth, but he doesn't. And like, for you to feel like you're in on it, but instead they chose to do the stupid mystery box nonsense that movies of this era all love to do because of J.J. Abrams and because of Lost. So it's like, we're going to pretend like we've got a twist, when it's like, you don't have a twist. You were just withholding information. That's all. So that's why I say, like, it doesn't feel as organic as it should, because by the end of it, it's like, oh, if only you had these three pieces of information, you would have known this the
Then
whole
you would have
time.
known.
And it's
Yes,
like, yeah, well,
exactly.
you could have actually put all of that in the first 15 minutes of the movie, and then we would have known. And it would have been way more impactful throughout as things happen, because we would have been like, no, come on, like, get there, man. Like,
Yeah.
you need to realize this, that like,
I don't know. I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it being a
I'm okay
reveal.
with it. I just think that it could have been a much better movie if they hadn't have gone that route.
Okay.
Incredibles 2 is offensive, in my opinion.
I know.
It's
Okay.
we've talked about this, and every time I bring it up, you act like it's a new
Oh,
thing.
yeah.
It's
Yeah. No. I remember. Yes, I remember the dad thing.
sexist,
Yes.
just
Yes.
straight up. Mr.
Yes.
Mom came out in the 80s. Making Mr. Mom in 2018 is unacceptable, in my opinion. Men can be homemakers.
Yes.
That's not a revolutionary idea. And I don't care if he has superpowers. That doesn't do anything. Anyways, I don't want to relitigate that one. Toy Story 4 is not a good movie.
I don't know if I watched it.
Toy Story
So
4 has
that's the one with the fork,
retroactively.
right?
Sorry?
Is that the one with the forky thing?
Yeah.
The fork character? Yeah, okay.
Toy Story
I
4
I didn't agree.
retroactively made me despise the Toy Story franchise.
Oh,
And
jeez.
I
That's brutal.
love Buzz Lightyear. Like,
Yeah.
Buzz Lightyear is one of like my top 5 Disney characters. But Toy Story 4, the 1-2 punch of Toy Story 3 and then Toy Story 4 undoes all of the goodwill from the first two movies for me. It just completely ruins the franchise. I can't, like, the girls haven't seen them. Cara has seen Toy Story 4 because we went and saw it in the theater. It was not made for kids, first of all. It was made for the
Really?
adults.
Oh, jeez.
100%. She hated it.
Oh, jeez.
She did not like it at all. So she won't go back and watch the old movies with me. And I also
Oh,
have no, like, I'm not willing to fight that fight with her of like, no, the first two are actually really good, which they are. Like, they are really good movies, and I loved Toy Story after watching the first one, and then the second one
right.
made me love those characters even more. Toy Story
Right.
3, I just like, I think I've watched it once, and it was just like, that was sort of when I started to develop my distaste for Pixar, because it was like, well, you guys are just taking characters that we love because of the first two movies and then putting them in mortal danger, right? Like,
Yeah.
just to do it, just so that it's like when they all link hands or whatever, and they're like, well, then we'll all just go into this incinerator together. I'm just like, why are we doing this? Like, why? Like, what, other than to get the up twisting the knife, why are you doing this? Right. And
Right.
it's like, that's when it became apparent to me that that's what Pixar was interested in doing, and they did it for the next decade. And then Toy Story 4 was just like, hey, you remember all that stuff that we talked about in those first three movies? Throw it all out the window. Woody's just gonna leave. He's just
Right.
gonna leave because she's not playing with him, so he's just gonna leave. He's just gonna completely abandon who he was in those other movies. He's just gonna leave. And you're like, oh, okay, I guess. Um, yeah, and then like Buzz Lightyear is not a likable character. It's not that he's not likable. He doesn't do anything interesting in Toy Story 4. I guess Keanu Reeves is fun when he does the little stunt thing. Whatever. They introduced like 30 new characters. None of them are interesting. Um, Onward was absolutely mediocre.
Weird.
just
Yeah. Yeah. It was
just
a weird movie.
just totally fine. um
Yeah.
there's some good jokes in there, but for the most part it's just like, all right, this exists. I'm not offended by it, I'm not upset by it. I'm
I
also
actually didn't finish watching it.
really, yeah, exactly, there you
Yeah.
go, perfect. Soul was pretty good. Soul was pretty good, but it really didn't feel like a Pixar movie, certainly didn't feel like it was for kids.
Yeah.
um
I'll give you
it
that. Yeah.
kind
Yeah.
of like,
Yeah.
Soul leaned a little bit too far to the adult side of the Pixar stuff, which I think one of the things that Pixar has managed to do along the way, like all the way along the way for the most part, was balance that, like, this is a movie for kids that adults can enjoy, that has like this deeper stuff. Soul was very much like, I think Crystal and I really enjoyed it. I think that Kara was bored to tears by it.
Oh,
um the
that's
stuff
fair.
with
I mean, I
with
could
the
see that.
cat body is funny,
Yeah.
but like,
Yeah.
like other than that, it didn't really capture her. And that brings us to Luca. And I'm gonna go ahead and say it right here: the best Pixar movie. Full stop.
Wow.
Full
Wow.
stop.
Awesome.
It's the best movie that Pixar has ever made. Um,
That's high praise.
as a technical achievement, it's the most beautiful film they've ever made. It might be one of the best looking computer animated movies. Like just end of conversation there. Like, it might be one of the best looking, if not for like, did you watch Mitchell's versus the Machines?
Not yet, but people keep talking to me
You
about it, and I'm kind of like,
you
I feel like
gotta
I
watch
definitely
it.
should watch it. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
A, it's hilarious.
Yeah.
B, it's heartwarming as hell. And C,
Nice.
from a technical standpoint, it is phenomenal. And then it's the
Okay.
same a lot of the same people worked on Mitchell's versus the Machines that worked on Spider-Verse. So like, because
Oh,
Spider-Verse exists, it's really hard for me to say that anything else is quite as amazing as Spider-Verse.
right. That's
Um
fair.
because that movie just like takes animation and like really uses it as a medium, and cranks everything, like it doesn't even crank thing, it just, Spider-Verse breaks the knob off in every
Hmm.
conceivable way. It's so good. But Luca to me is like, this is, it's not only to me the best Pixar movie, I think it's one of the best movies that Disney has put out in the last few years. um we watched it, I guess, like a week and a half ago. We were late to it.
Yeah.
Everybody else had
I was
kind of
there for a
already
little bit.
watched it, and we
Mhm.
just hadn't been able to find the time. And then, with everything that was going on, there was a moment where we kind of slowed down for a second, and I was like, let's watch Luca. Like, let's forget about everything else right now. Let's just sit down, the four of us, and watch Luca. And Cassie sat through the entire movie.
What?
Like,
that's awesome.
Like, she was definitely kind of up and down, and she's not even 2 yet, right? But she sat and she watched this movie, and she understood what was happening. And oh man, what did she say? I don't remember what it was, but the word sea monster came out of her mouth. And Crystal and I had this moment where we looked at each other, because Kara from like day one was right there with me of like, let's veg on the couch and watch stuff. Like, Kara and I are just so similar in that way. Cassie is not like that. Cassie is active and wants to be up and doing stuff and getting into trouble. She's
yeah, it's frustrating because I try to babysit her and she just won't
her
watch
middle
TV
name
with me.
is May, and she's like, that May is after it's two things. I have an aunt. I have an actual Aunt May, but her name is spelled Mae. But she's named after that aunt as well as May Parker, not Aunt May, but Peter and MJ's daughter. And that character has the nickname Mayday. And Cassie also has the nickname Mayday because she is constantly in trouble. Like, she's constantly doing something she shouldn't be doing. She loves it. She excels at it. And that was something that like Crystal and I decided on before she was born, because like in utero she was a troublemaker. We were like, this, because we had a name picked out, and we were like, oh yeah, this is a great name. And it was just like we did for Kara as well. And then like sort of in the 11th hour we switched that up as well, because like as you get to know their personalities and stuff, you change it. With Cassie, it was like, that is not her name. That's not her name. And we went around and around and around on it, and we eventually obviously landed on Cassandra May. And we're like, yeah, Mayday. Like, yeah, that's definitely going to fit her to a T. And it does. So she generally does not sit through, she won't even sit through like most half-hour cartoon shows that are designed for her age group. She, for the first time, sat through a movie with us. And Luca's not long, right? It's a decent length for a kids movie. But when she like said, I can't remember what she said it in response to, but whatever was happening, and she said sea monster, and Crystal and I looked at each other, and it was like, not only did she sit for the movie, which was a feat, like she understood what was happening. What it was. She followed the plot as best as a 2-year-old can, right?
Wow.
So it wins on that of like, and Kara loved it as well. I really liked it. Crystal liked it as much as Crystal likes any movie. She's so hard to read on this stuff, because like 2 months later she'll be like, I really like that movie. You're like, really? Because I couldn't tell when we were watching it if you cared or not. Or like with Black Widow, we left the theater and it was like, did you like it? And then like the next day she was like, yeah, it was good. And then the next day she was like, I didn't like Black Widow. I was like, okay. Fair. Yeah. She's not one for the explosions and the kick punches. It doesn't do anything for her. I think the humor fell flat for her, but Luca, she seemed to like it quite a bit, or enough, I guess. But yeah, I mean, like the more I think about this movie, for me, like the more I'm like, this, like I'll give it the stamp. I think this is the first time that I've said it. I put it up there with my perfect 10s, like Ghostbusters, Back to the Future, the first 3 Star Wars movies. Like, there is nothing in this movie that I would change. Which I think that for me, like, that's the most praise that I can give a movie, is where I'm like,
that's intense.
It's like, are there things that maybe if I were the one telling the story that I might have done a little bit differently? Maybe. But when I watch the movie, is there anything that like I walk away from it that's in the back of my head that I'm like, man, that doesn't sit right with me? Like, they really should have done this or this. Nothing in this movie. 0 things in this movie. And then there are certain things in this movie that like are just like just some of the best things I've seen on screen. The way that they move through the water is so
Oh,
good.
yeah.
It's
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
so good. All of the underwater stuff is so good. The world building that they do in such a short amount of time, because we really don't spend a lot of time underwater, right?
Right. Yeah, I
I
guess
guess
so.
maybe from here we might get into a little bit of spoiler territory. So if you haven't watched Luca yet, it's on Disney Plus. It's not Premier Access. It's just on Disney Plus. So go watch
Which
it.
is awesome
Yeah,
and makes me
fantastic.
happy.
But yeah, like they really don't spend a lot of time in that world, but they spend enough time, and they're very economical about the way that they tell that story in the first 15 minutes of the movie underwater before we move into the stuff on land and then eventually in the town. And it's just like the pacing is perfect to me. Like there was never a point where I was like, let's get to the next thing, or I'm bored by this. The plot is very easy to follow. Like it's not challenging in the sense of like, who is that character, what is, like, everybody is who they are, and like the characters are like visually instantly recognizable. They fit into the narrative perfectly. Like every piece of it to me just kind of like perfectly slots. Like it just comes together to make it just a really really good movie. And then you get to a gut punch moment in this story, and it is 100% earned. And it's totally organic. It doesn't feel like them, like I've said with these other, with a lot of the other Pixar movies, it doesn't feel like them turning the screws or twisting the knife. Like they're not doing this to get a response out of you. This is just where the story goes. Is that like sooner or later, it's Julia, right? Yeah, like she has to find out
Right. Yeah, yeah.
the truth about them, right? And the
Mhm.
way that they do it is just this great way of like, you've got these two friends, and then you introduce a third friend who happens to be a girl. There's a little bit of metaphor in there, because it's a coming of age story, so it's always, that's, you always got to have that. But she is a tomboy, so like we're keeping it safe, but at the
Yeah,
same
yeah.
time, it's there, right? And it's
Oh,
like,
100%. Yeah.
is he gonna go with the girl that he just met, or his friend who brought him there in the first place? And you know, and Luca is forced to make that choice. um and it's one of those moments where like, either way, if he had gone either way, I would have been satisfied. But the way that he does go, it's like, it takes the story in that direction, and you're just like, oh man, like it is, it's just this
It was
moment where,
so unexpected.
yeah,
Like, you're talking about the like, when he's down by the water,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And he turns on him? Oh,
yeah,
oh.
yeah,
I thought it could do anything. I did not expect it to do that. Like, I
yeah.
straight up didn't, and I'm kinda like, it was I don't know, I like visual I also watched that one with my family. It's been such a lovely, heartwarming, like, month that I've been down here with my family. But, and it's, like, it's rare that we can find actual, like, movies that we all watch. That's so funny. We're talking about the 2 movies I actually watched with, like, all the family members in my house.
Yeah.
But, I, like, remember visually, like, everybody was watching it so quietly, and I was like, "Oh, you guys don't even know, like, that was insane." Anyway, so,
Yeah.
like, it's a
So
Pixar movie, Amanda, get over it.
yeah, I just think,
But it's good.
if anything, maybe like the race at the end could, I think maybe they could have just like, just maybe crank that up a little tiny bit more. Certainly the bike stuff, I feel like we could have done just a little tiny bit more, but it's good. It's not I don't feel like I'm missing anything.
Right.
But I do think like, maybe we could just season that a little tiny bit more. Um but I but yeah, like and then because of what happens, it's like, I feel like with a lot of the other Pixar movies, you get those moments. Certainly Toy Story 3, like you get that moment, and it's like, to me it doesn't, that doesn't make the end of Toy Story 3, when they all like go back to what's the little girl, Bonnie, I think is her name. Well, like it
Uh,
doesn't make that any
oh,
more
right.
heartwarming than it would have been if they had just gotten back to her, right?
Right. Right.
And then like the end of that movie really trades on the first two movies with Andy being like, oh hey, these are my toys and you can have them, and like this is the most important one of all, sort of thing, right? Like we have that not because of anything that happens in Toy Story 3, but because of what happened in the first two movies. So yeah, it with this one, it's like the place where we get the gut punch is there, because then when what are the characters' names? Oh man, it's Luca and
I forget the other guy's name.
yeah, it's on the tip of
But
my tongue.
it's the dude that's from Shazam. I was
From
watching the
Shazam,
whole
yeah.
movie and I was like,
Jack
what is
Dylan
the
Grazer is
dude's
the
name?
actor, yeah. Um,
Yeah. I
Alberto.
don't. Oh
Alberto.
yeah.
Yeah, so when Alberto comes back with the
Right.
umbrella
Yeah.
and then everything happens there, you're like, this is all like, it's so satisfying, even though you're also like the characters are immediately put into mortal peril. It's like
They
you're
did
so
it
happy for
together.
them that like
Yeah.
their friendship is mended and that stuff.
Yeah.
um and then the end of the movie, when you get to the point where it's like these two fish boys are revealed, and then their parent, like his Luca's parents, reveal themselves, and then the two old women or whatever. And it's like, in any other movie, if they hadn't made me fall in love with this world and these characters so much, I wouldn't forgive how quick this happens,
Oh
of
yeah.
like,
Yeah, they're all like, we're fine.
yeah,
Everybody
of like
loves
everybody just
everybody.
being okay with it. But because the world has made itself out to be so um hyperbolic and fantastic, and just like like everything is so extreme, right? The character Massimo, right?
Yep.
The Julia's dad,
Oh yeah.
uh, with his like his
It's
squinty
so
eyes and his big
great
bushy
with his no
mustache.
and his
The
one
cat, like the
arm. Oh,
absurdity of the
it's just
cat,
the cat.
Hercule,
So good.
right? Like I love that it has a legitimate nemesis, that we have an actual bad guy, which I feel like Disney
Yeah.
movies, whether it's Pixar or Walt Disney Animation, they have lacked that so much in the last 15 years, of like let's have a real bad guy, like an actual bad
Yeah.
guy, and the stakes are so small because this is a story about kids, right?
Right.
So their villain is equally small, in that respect, but he's a villain. there's
Yeah.
no like
Exactly.
there's no like he's not relatable, there's no like sympathetic aspect to him. He's just a bad guy, right?
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
he doesn't have to be sympathetic or relatable because he's a joke, right? So he's light in the sense that like we don't take him seriously, except that like he's a legitimate danger to our main characters, right?
Yeah.
um
Yeah.
so it's like you have that conflict there, that I feel like when you look at like Frozen, and especially Frozen 2, like in Frozen, it's like the bad guy doesn't even reveal themselves until the third act,
Oh
at
yeah, man. I forget about that.
at
Yeah.
which point you're kind of like, we've already sat through this whole movie, now you're gonna be a bad guy, like this is not that interesting. And then Frozen 2, the bad guy's been dead for 100 years because it's her grandfather, right?
Oh right. Yeah. Yeah.
like like
Yeah.
it's so not relevant to our actual characters. It's relevant to the world
Yeah.
that they're in, and it's part of the narrative and whatever. And it's a choice, like that's a choice that they made with those movies, of like, we're not going to
But
have
in
a
this
bad
one, yeah,
guy.
but in this, you have a bad guy right off the top. You're like, oh,
Yeah,
the snotty kid with the Vespa.
yeah.
You know what? I love talking about stuff with you, Mike. It makes me like it more. I'm now like really seeing, because I kind of was like, that was a cute movie, but I didn't
No,
know if I really like remembered all the things. And now
yeah.
that I'm talking about it with you, I'm
i
like, oh
think
yeah,
i
what was
think
this
watch it
thing?
again,
Yeah,
but watch it critically,
yeah,
because most of the time when we go like, oh, let's watch this critically, it's like let's watch Rise of Skywalker critically. Okay, let's hate this movie more than we did the first time we watched it, right? Like the first time I watched Rise of Skywalker, I came away dissatisfied.
Yeah.
I would say actually the same was true for The Last Jedi. My response walking out of the theater for both of those movies was very similar. But with The Last Jedi, I was like, I gotta see it again.
Right.
I have to see it again because I feel like I'm missing something. And then I watched it again and again. I think maybe the second time was with you, right?
I think so, yeah.
Because I think it was one of those ones where it was like you and me were like, we got to go see this movie again.
See it again, yeah, and you're the only person that'll go like within 2 days of having first seen it.
And I went and saw it again, and I was like, no, I think actually I really like this movie. Like I think, and I had to process some stuff. There's a lot. The Last Jedi has a lot. It's got to be processed. Some people never get there. Some people are still working on it. With The Rise of Skywalker, I left the theater and went, I got to go see it again. I have to go see it again. I don't understand why I don't like this movie. Which was very different of like,
yeah,
like with The Last Jedi, I was like, I liked so much of that, but I just like so much of it was reacting to, I can't believe they did that. I can't believe they killed Snoke. I can't believe this,
right.
that, whatever, right? How are they going to get, like, how are we going to resolve this story? I don't know how this is. I can't see where this is going, which frustrated me at the time, right? But I very quickly got over it. And the more I dug into it, the more I loved The Last Jedi, right? With The Rise of Skywalker, it's the total opposite of like, I was like, I think I don't like this movie. I don't want to not like this movie. I have to go back to it and find the things that I like, which I did on subsequent viewings. But then the more critically I watch it, the more I'm just like, the dagger makes no sense, right? Like it just.
Oh my gosh, I've completely forgot. I haven't rewatched it in a long time.
Yeah, and then I'm in the Disney store on the weekend, and the Disney stores in Canada are all closing, which is
so
such a bummer.
That you didn't buy it for me.
I'm sorry. Well, it was way too late because I had taken the picture the day before I posted it, and then you said something that night. I was like, sorry. I doubt they're open anymore. I think that they're done.
But I can't believe I don't actually have Rise of Skywalker, or what is this last one?
Yeah, Rise of Skywalker.
Oh, is it? Yeah, Rise of Skywalker. Yeah. I don't have that one on DVD.
But exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
But I will say though, originally it was because it came out early.
Yep.
Right?
On Disney Plus.
And so I was like, I'm going to watch this. No, it came out early so I could buy it somewhere.
But you're a Star Wars fan.
I am. Yeah, so I don't know. I just
There's stuff on the Blu-ray that's not on Disney Plus. Right?
Maybe I should buy it.
Well, no, but this is exactly my point. If in any other circumstance with any other Star Wars movie,
I would have bought it.
Gotta have it. Yeah. The funny thing is that, like I say all this, I don't own a physical copy of Solo.
Oh.
But I don't own a physical copy of Solo because they never put out a nice enough version of it on Blu-ray.
Oh, okay. Fair.
For me to go, I need to buy, because I bought the digital the day that it dropped on digital, right? Because it comes out early on digital and then later on in the old model back in the before times. And it had all the special features that everything that was like that all of the Blu-ray releases had. So I was just like, there isn't like none of these are worth me buying to put on my shelf. So I'll wait. So like with Solo, I'm like waiting for like eventually they'll do one that's got box art that I love, or like some special features that they haven't released before that aren't anywhere else. And I'll do, or maybe they might not, because physical is kind of not the thing anymore. But anyways, all of that to say that like most of the time when we go back and watch something critically, it's like you're probably going to be a little bit less satisfied with it than you were initially. Like with the Marvel movies, I'll use an example of like Avengers: Age of Ultron, especially now in light of Joss Whedon and knowing exactly how terrible of a person he is. The full breadth of it, not just the fact that he was abusive to his wife, but the way that he treats people on set and all that sort of stuff. And now all of those quippy one-liners are not all of them, but some of them I just get kind of frustrated knowing that like that's him trying to be clever, and he's really just a terrible person. So now because I have that feeling, I can watch Age of Ultron and kind of like go like, oh yeah, okay, I get it. Like because there are a lot of
Right.
people that are critical of Age of Ultron, and I've always been like, it's a better movie than I think people give it credit for.
It's all right.
And now I go back and watch it, and I'm like, yeah, okay, yeah, this drags in the middle. It's all over the place. Like it's very disjointed. I just happen to love these characters, right?
Yeah.
Like that's really what it comes down to. Is I love these characters. I love spending time with them. I don't care if it's in a bad movie. So I'll
Fair.
forgive a lot of things.
Yeah, me too.
But with Luca, I think, and this is my thing, and this is when movies go beyond being good and get into great territory and definitely get into like that perfect 10 territory for me. It's that I can watch this movie over and over again, and I'll probably start to pick up new things. I'll see different stuff. I'll watch the characters in the background. I'll notice things about the animation that I didn't notice before. One of the reviews that I listened to earlier today was talking about the fact that like the they meld 3D and 2D techniques in this movie in a really seamless way where like with the mouths, I they
Oh.
animate them differently head on from when they're on from the side, and but they do it in a way of like if I were drawing, I would draw the mouth differently. So it's like when you look at like old Pixar stuff, the 3D model is the 3D model, right?
Mhm.
And Woody nothing changes about him depending on what angle you're viewing him at. And at the time, that was the technical feat, was like, wow, look at this. We create the character
Looks
in the
like a
computer
real.
and then we
Yeah.
animate him, and he is perfectly consistent all of the time. And for a long time, that's what we thought computer animation was. And now Mitchell's versus the Machines does this as well. Spider-Verse did it too, where it's like we're actually gonna take the great stuff about 2D, we're going to borrow some of the stuff that back in the day we thought were actually the bad parts of 2D, like when
Mm.
characters go off model, which used to
Right.
be seen as like oh,
Yeah,
have you ever
the
watched the
old
first
thing.
season of The Simpsons? They're barely on model. Like the characters just they look totally different from episode to episode. And then it's like nowadays I would go back because now we look at like Family Guy, Simpsons, all of this stuff, and it's like sterile, right?
Right.
Because it's all computer assisted now. And it's
Right.
like, is anybody even drawing anything for those shows anymore? Do they need to? Haven't they drawn every single pose that Homer Simpson's ever gonna do? Right? Based
Right.
on the
Yeah.
way that they like the technique that they use now, right? And what you're seeing with a lot of stuff, and Curtis and I talked a lot about this with DuckTales, is that the best animation is taking advantage of the computer for consistency but knowing when to break those rules. And Luca
Right.
is one of those examples of like I said, like the mouths changing depending on the angle to match the way that if I was drawing it in 2D, it would, like I might change that up, like because
Right.
they kind
Yeah.
of have the it's a thing. I there's a bunch of people online who talk about it in a derogatory fashion. They either say it's Cal Arts style or they call it bean mouth, which is like it's like the Adventure Time, Steven Universe. It's like a lot of animated stuff right now uses this style, and actually it's a style that after Adventure Time and really Gravity Falls, which is a fantastic show that's on Disney Plus that people should watch if they haven't.
Yeah. Gravity Falls is cute.
Gravity Falls is so good, and it's probably one of the best examples of it. And trying to draw the characters from Gravity Falls was when I started to move my style away from like I was trying to do like comic booky kind of Humberto Ramos style art, and all of a sudden I was like, actually I really like this, and
Yeah.
found that like, oh, my sensibilities actually match this really well. This, I'm really comfortable drawing this. And you can see in my sketchbooks the first time that I drew Dipper from Gravity Falls, and then all of a sudden my style started to change. And it was right when I started doing Kenobi. I mean, you can see like if you go back into those comics, you can see where like I was doing one thing didn't really know what my style was going to be for that. Kind of had an idea of it, and then all of a sudden it started to change, and it started to go into that style, this like the, as they call it, bean mouth style, and I love it now, and like my art is so much better than it's ever been because like I've been able to take that and then push it even further. And so like this is to me, it's probably one of the reasons why I'm vibing with Luca so much, is that like it definitely lives in that same style that I draw in, that I love, right? Um, but it is like the most impressive, or one of the most impressive, I should say, versions of that style, like sort of evolutions of that style, being that it's Pixar doing it, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, to me, it's like just every frame in this movie is print it, put it up on your wall. Like it's just,
it's beautiful.
it's so amazing to look at. The water is just like breathtaking at times. And I care so much about this stuff. And then most people, I think, will watch an animated movie and be like, "Oh, that's really pretty," right? But it's like guys like Curtis and myself, like we watch these things and then like dissect them. So, like I will probably at some point over the course of the next few weeks watch Luca by myself, if I can get a moment by myself. That hasn't happened a lot lately. I but I want to, like, I want to watch it, and like watch it with like an artist slash animator's eye,
right?
Like to really focus on that stuff. Like it's one of those things where like what I'll probably end up doing is putting it on the screen while I'm working, so that I can, like, I'll be working and that I can just like, I won't even have the sound on, maybe like I'll just mute it, and just for the visuals, just so that I can just like take that in without distraction, because it's like, it's just such a feat. I just think they've done such an amazing job with it. Yeah, it's funny because I finished watching it and I tweeted, I think this might be my favorite Pixar movie. It's like, it's a weird feeling because Toy Story is 1995. I was 10 years old. It's
so long ago.
It's not only is it so long ago, it's formative. Like it's in my DNA, right? And it's probably one of the reasons why Toy Story 3, and then especially 4, I kind of take it personally. And so like I don't think I've really talked about it that much. I think I talked about it a little bit after I saw Toy Story 4. We might have talked about it on one of the podcasts briefly. But like I don't really talk about it that much because it's like I just don't want to. I know how much people love Toy Story because I loved Toy Story that much, right? And I don't want to like take that away from people.
Right.
It's not like Rise of Skywalker where I'm like, wake up, sheeple, you need to understand that this movie is bad. Like I need everybody to understand in the way that I understand that it's not good. Because there are so many people who are like, any Star Wars is good Star Wars, and I used to be like that, and I'm like, no, that's not true. We need to demand more from Lucasfilm and Disney. They can't end the saga.
They're getting better.
Yeah. Well, we're
being
left.
held
Those
accountable.
characters are left in that state, and it's just,
yeah.
Rey doesn't deserve that. She's an important character, and she doesn't deserve to be left that way. She won't be. In 10 years, they'll make another trilogy that'll continue the Skywalker saga, and they'll bring back those characters, and but it's not going to be what people want it to be, but it'll be something. And then a whole new group of children will be like, I love these more than the other ones. You'll be like, you're dumb because you're young. But you're also right, but you're so wrong. It doesn't matter. None of it's actually relevant because the world is on fire.
Wow. Way to segue.
Yeah. That's the uncut listeners will have much more context for that. But yeah, I don't know. It might also just like, I'm trying to be as objective about it as I can, but also film is a subjective experience, so you can't, as much as like it's important to go through the exercise of looking at film objectively. If a movie hits with you, it hits with you. If it gets to you on a deep level, there's a reason for that. and it might be where you are at in your life in that moment. And the last 2 weeks of my life have been a little bit tumultuous, and here was this like bright spot in the middle of all of that, and maybe that's part of it for me. But that also doesn't change anything. You know what I mean? Like it's like, is that a mitigating factor for why this is my favorite Pixar movie? Maybe. Like sitting on the couch with my wife and my daughters and enjoying a movie, and the four of us sitting quietly and watching a movie for the first time ever is a big deal for me personally. So that might inform part of it. But then also there's all of these technical things that I've talked about that are also like, it's spot on. I think it's I think it has those merits as well. But those things might just be hitting a little bit harder for me because it's just because of the time and place sort of thing as well. So I don't know. I would say watch it again. Let me know what you think. I but that's my feeling on it. I talked a lot. Do you have anything that you need to add about the movie Luca?
I mean, I really appreciate you having gone into such detail for it, because for me, I like that in addition to the artistry, that there was something that I really hit for me about the story of it, and this like relationship between these two boys, and just like what it means to fit in and to be an outcast, and the good parenting, like how do you be a parent when you're separated, and like create like this like safe space for your daughter who is an outcast when she comes to visit you. And anyways, I just think that it was overall, there was some really awesome things that aren't in a ton of other movies. And then it just allowed, I mean, it was allowed to be what it was, and it was also beautiful. So I think that that's kind of cool. So I don't know. I think you talked about the things that were necessary. So thank you for going through all of those. And I think in everything else, I really liked just the core of the narrative as well. I think it was surprising. It wasn't just what I expected it to be. So, which is great. Yeah.
Cool.
I don't know, hopefully that's helpful.
I mean, I think we did it.
Yeah, I think we did it.
I think it was nice to talk about something positive for a change.
Yeah, right.
Something that we loved. Yeah. Cool. Well, like I said, I'll be back next week with I have too many podcasts. Metaphysical fiction. I wanted to say Faster, More Intense, but that's not true. We're not doing Faster, More Intense right now. Metaphysical fiction with Carl. We're going to talk about Independence Day. I am looking forward to that conversation because that movie is so special and so awful, but so great. Yep. It is a contradiction in and of itself. It defies everything and ends up being probably one of my favorite movies of all time. That is certainly because it was 1996, 97, 96, right?
I think so, but it was something that it's one of my favorite movies of all time too. Like I loved Bill Pullman and Jeff Goldblum. They were like two of my absolute favorite actors in the 90s. And it's fully because of Independence Day. Like I remember just loving, and Bill Pullman also was in While You Were Sleeping, which I also quite enjoyed. But like, and Jeff Goldblum was in Jurassic Park. So like there was like this sort of trifecta of like my favorite things. And then
you've got Will Smith as well, right? So
yes, that's true. He's not like my super ultimate favorite person.
But he was the moment. Will Smith was the moment in 1996, 97, because he had the 2 years in a row where he had back-to-back Alien summer blockbusters, #1 movies of the year, sort of. Maybe of the year, I don't know, but Independence Day and then Men in Black, right? So, yes. And then Wild Wild West, which we don't talk about.
I enjoyed that soundtrack a lot, and I feel like the soundtrack wouldn't have existed without the movie.
Wild West is one of those ones where it's like, is this movie bad? Yes. Does it have redeeming qualities? Not really. Does it star a bunch of phenomenal actors at the top of their game? 100%. 100%. You could,
it's great.
Yeah,
It's
Kenneth Branagh's the bad guy.
Oh yeah! Oh my gosh!
Right?
I have never until this moment clocked that was Kenneth Branagh because he does such a good job and it doesn't look like him.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. That is amazing. Welcome to the Thunderquack podcast where we drop pop culture knowledge all day long. Or once every 2 weeks.
Well, I do. And then you just kind of react to me dropping pop culture knowledge.
Basically. Where you can watch Amanda, listen to Amanda. Anyways,
I mean, such a the four leads in that movie: Will Smith, Kevin Kline, Kenneth Branagh, and Salma Hayek.
Yeah,
good stuff there, and some amazing special effects. Giant spider that was originally intended for a Superman movie. Did you know that story?
No.
Yeah, so Kevin Smith talks about this on I believe the First Evening with Kevin Smith DVD,
Nice.
which is like when he would do his like talking engagements and that sort of thing. And he would tell the story of when he was hired to do the Superman movie for Tim Burton, and man, who was I'm trying to remember the producer of that movie, because it's the same person who produced Wild Wild West. So he was given certain criteria to write the screenplay for Superman Lives.
Okay.
And
John Peters?
Yes. Yeah. Okay. And one of those things is that Superman must fight a giant mechanical spider in the third act. And Kevin Smith was like, really? He has to? Like, this is one of... And it was like, yeah, he has to. I'm not making this movie unless Superman fights a giant mechanical spider in the third act. And Kevin Smith, being Kevin Smith and a huge comic book fan, was like, okay, cool. I mean... this is a little like this is you're kind of putting me in a corner, but it's Superman. Like, there are at least three villains.
Is this the Superman one with Nicolas Cage?
It would have been, yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
Oh.
And he's like, it's like, yeah, like there are at least three supervillains that we could draw from that could have a giant mechanical spider at the end of this movie. And I think if I remember right, that Kevin Smith wanted to go with Brainiac, which that makes sense, right? Yeah, Brainiac is invading, and how's he going to beat Superman with a giant mechanical spider that they have to fight in the third act? It's perfectly legitimate. Sure. But that movie never got made. And then Kevin Smith tells the story. When he tells this story, he always he ends it with, and then however many years later, I'm sitting in the theater watching Wild Wild West, and lo and behold, in the third act, a giant mechanical spider that they have to defeat. And then the credits roll, and yep, John Peters. There it goes. He finally got his giant mechanical spider. So Wild Wild West is connected to Superman in that way, and therefore holds a special place in my heart. And I think it's a lot of fun.
It's just such a fun movie. It's so fun.
It's not the movie anyone asked for.
No, nobody needed this movie to exist.
But and coming off of Independence Day and Men in Black, I think people just had very high expectations for Wild Wild West, and it just look. Here's the thing, 1999. All right, Phantom Menace, The Matrix, Wild Wild West. Tarzan was also that summer. I don't know. There might not be a better summer for movies. I don't know.
It was pretty good. I will say
99 was a good year.
Will Smith, like the best movie experience I've had where Will Smith unexpectedly shows up, because you can just tell that he was like contractually obligated to not pull out of this movie or something, is he's in Winter's Tale, the film that's like whatchamacallit, it has Colin Farrell, and no, not Colin Farrell. Colin Farrell.
I don't know.
And Russell Crowe. Anyways, he has like a decent role in it, and you can just tell that he probably was like, nope, I want nothing to do with this film. You can't put me in any of the like marketing material. Because it's like the film doesn't make sense if his character doesn't exist, and it's sort of like a really weird, like he just sort of comes out of nowhere and you're like, what, Will Smith is in this movie? Anyway,
is he really? Because like when
Winter's
I look
Tale.
at when I look at it on IMDb, it's like,
yep, he's hidden all the way in the bottom of the credits. Like, I don't know what is going on. I think he just wanted to distance himself from this film, but like it is a super weird, like, because you look at Winter's Tale and it's marketed like this romance. It's like a deep fantasy film, like deep cuts of like time, like unaging people and like mythical, like biblical stuff, and it's like it's pretty intense.
I've never seen this movie,
yeah,
and you're blowing my mind right now, because like I'm looking at this cast and it's like Colin Farrell, Jennifer Connelly, Russell Crowe, Matt Bomer's in it.
Like it's William Hurt is in it.
William Hurt's in it. Yeah.
And I don't know what it was, because it's one of those movies that they didn't know how to market. Because if you went in trying to expect this movie that you see in the poster, like this lovey, like, I'm in love with this woman, then you're sorely disappointed when you watch the movie. I enjoyed it because it was two of my favorite things. It was like some random, like, sort of like mythical romance, and then just straight up like fantasy and like action, and like it was. But if you didn't know that that's what you were getting into, and you weren't me very specifically, the movie would have really like put you off. So I can imagine that people don't know how to talk about this movie because it doesn't fit into any real category. It's a great fun time, and like I say, Will Smith is in the movie and you're like, oh, okay. Cool.
Interesting.
Anyways, yeah,
interesting.
It's worth exploring. It's super random.
It's got a 6.2 out of 10 on IMDb. I don't necessarily know what that means. I'm guessing that's based on user reviews, but
potentially. But yeah, don't look up who Will Smith plays, because it ruins a core part of the movie.
Okay.
Like, anyways, fair. I mean, you can, but then you're like, who's he play? What is this movie about? And then, I mean, I will say, if they were able to market it as the Russell Crowe Will Smith storyline, that would have completely changed like the movie. So it would be interesting. Anyways, Winter's Tale, Wild Wild West. We're all about those deep cuts here at the Thunderquack Podcast. Have a Will Smith weekend.
Yeah, I guess so.
Enjoy.
Cool. That's it. We already tried to end the podcast once, and then we fell into another.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
We did.
I went there too. I thank you guys for listening. We'll be back in a few weeks with another episode. We'll see you guys in August for another regular episode of the Thunderquack Podcast. But there's stuff in between. So thank you guys for listening. We'll catch you on the next one.
Stay safe, everybody. Wash your hands and be kind to one another.
Follow the Thunderquack Podcast on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook by searching the Thunderquack Podcast. You can support us in 3 ways. First, by heading to the podcast service of your choice and leaving a rating and review. Second, by going to store.thunderquack.com to pick up some merch from your favorite podcasts. And last but not least, by heading to patreon.com/thunderquack to kick in with your monthly pledge of support and get cool rewards like early access and extended episodes. The Thunderquack Podcast is the official podcast of thunderquack.com. Head to thunderquack.com to discover more great podcasts.